Hi, this is SJ from the SJ Child Show. Thanks for joining me. Today on the SJ Child Show, we talk to Coach John McLernon. He's the head coach at Freedom Nutrition Coaching, as well as the podcast host at Coach John Podcasts. You can check him out on your favorite podcast platforms. Until then, enjoy this episode. Hi, and welcome to the SJ Child Show. I'm your host, SJ Childs, and today I have a special guest, Jonathan McLernon, and I hope I said that correctly.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. He is the author of Crush Your Cravings, How to Lose Weight, Love Life, and Never Diet Again. Fat Loss Without Diets is what we'll cover today, and you're the head coach of Freedom Nutrition Coaching. Thank you so much for being here today. It's an honor to have you here. Tell us what got you started on this journey of health and wellness.
Well, I look back and I'm like, I've had this really kind of crazy varied background. I've done a lot of different things, and people look at my job history and go like, why did you do so many different things? I've been a nanotech researcher. So I was involved in chemistry at University of Victoria. I was a marine engineer for 6 years in the Navy. I've been a 4-time entrepreneur, a couple of failed businesses in there. My wife and we have been globetrotting English teachers.
Wow.
So, I've been a power line technician, so building utility poles and towers and stuff like that. So all these different things. And I was a heavy equipment operator in the oil field as well. So, you think like, how the heck did I get to this place where I'm like a nutrition coach of all things? And it's funny because I even joke that like nutrition is really the cover story for the work that I actually do, but it's really connected to my own personal story and I guess my own experience. So when we were traveling around the world, about 10 years ago, we were living in South Africa, and that's where an incident happened. I went through a trauma down there that really like dramatically shifted everything in my life, the way that trauma does. And maybe prior to that, like I was pretty athletic and pretty active. And so I kind of would have just thought people who were overweight were just like lazy or undisciplined or something like that. After being a binge eating food addict, I found myself wading into this world of weight loss, diet culture. And, I treated weight loss like this calculation that I could solve. I went back into research mode. I dove into the spreadsheets. I dove into, and I was creating these graphs and charting things and recording my macronutrients and all of this kind of stuff. And I was missing the forest for the trees in the biggest possible way. And I tried hiring coaches, and it was really a frustrating experience for me because it really felt like they didn't understand me. They didn't understand my experience. And they would just be like, well, you know this stuff. Why aren't you doing it? And I was like, that's the same question that I have. The same thing that I'm like. And so finally I hired this coach, and I still had this idea in my head that I would be happy if I looked a certain way. And this coach, he was a natural bodybuilder, but he didn't work with me the way I expected in the best possible way. So I think I say I've lost over 100 pounds, but the truth is, if you count all the times I've lost and gained weight, I've probably lost more like 600 pounds, like the classic yo-yo dieter, right?
Yeah.
And he shone a light on this glaring problem that was like kind of staring back at me. And that was really my relationship to myself and to my body. And because of all of my, my repeated efforts to lose weight and really failing at that, I became really angry and spiteful towards myself and my body. It was like, I felt like it had betrayed me or failed me. And I was trying to like punish it into submission. You look this way, you have to, and so on. And so he worked with me to heal my relationship with myself and my body, and by extension, that healed my relationship with food. And it was this monumental shift because I'd actually been coaching people. I was running a nutrition and supplement store as well, and I was known as the supplement guru. Like, had all this expert information in my head, but I couldn't seem to fix myself. And this was like the missing piece.
Yeah. Isn't that the case though? It really comes down to it for so many things in our life, the mindset. And it's that mindset that really holds us back or takes us to the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I never expected to, like, especially like from a male perspective, to be taught from other, like, man, like what it means to have self-compassion, what it means to treat myself. Like, what is self-love? I didn't even know what that is at that point in time in my life.
Right. So I don't think that's something that men bring up even often enough. So it's so true. I don't know, maybe generational. Like it's kind of,
it could be.
runs in the fact that, men need to be the strong providers and they can't have emotions and things. But nowadays it's like, no, men are humans. They have emotions.
Right. We're
It's
not robots.
better to engage in them and embrace them and move through them with your partner, family, things like that. So,
yeah. And I think that we've misunderstood emotions as though they were like somehow made us weak. And to be fair, there's probably some, I don't know if it could call it like a biological precedent necessarily, but if you think of like sort of historically speaking, like the world was kind of hostile for a large part of human history. And so showing weakness could be kind of a threat. Being vulnerable could be potentially a threat. And so our primal brain really works to keep ourselves safe and protect us. And so we could probably look at that and say there is probably a reason why this has sort of been in especially with males who predominantly were the protectors and providers and so on. It makes sense what given our physiology, we tend to be bigger, stronger. And so knowing these roles that we've historically played, we could probably find like a reason why this exists, but we live in kind of a different world. And I don't think we're that well adapted for this 21st century world to be fair.
Yeah, no, I could agree with that. Yeah. Well, and it's good though that now we can start when you do better, right? Now that we know, we can start to do better.
Yeah. Well, and I had to look back and say, like, I found myself reflecting on this question. If I had ever treated like a friend the way I treated myself, would I have had any friends left?
Yeah.
And that in itself is quite a telling question for people to reflect on. And sort of that gives you an idea into your relationship with yourself. And so then, because of the way I work, I think I have a pretty high IQ and a pretty high EQ. I've got this, kind of unique brain that combines the two. I can't take the credit. I got it free of charge. But I wanted to try to understand more of like, why do we struggle with this idea of self-compassion in particular? And, when we get angry at ourselves, we can really be quite abusive towards ourselves, and we simply have to take it. We can't run away. And so we often use ourself as like the punching bag for all of our difficult emotions, somehow getting it out, because maybe we've learned that socially it's not acceptable to express this emotion, this situation or something. It has to come out at some point in time. And so we direct it towards ourselves. We punish ourselves in our own head, or at least that was my experience. And being male, I think I viewed self-compassion as weakness and
vulnerability. Yeah.
Right. Because what, like, being compassionate towards ourselves, like it means that we're going to have to acknowledge our flaws. We're going to have to become aware of our mistakes and the things that we struggle with. It's all part of being human. Like all of us have these flaws, but now we're gonna have to bring them to the surface and look at them and try to look at them and not, well, try to not judge them, which, and so going through this process of self-compassion, also evokes feelings of shame and guilt and regret and so on. So it's a really difficult experience, and it's almost, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's very close to impossible to really navigate on our own.
What do you find works best for you to get through some of those moments?
I really start from this place of like every emotion has a reason for being there. Like I like my perspective is, and I often explain this to my clients, like I see emotions as like a check engine light. So if you think about like in the dashboard of your car, if something is not right, that little yellow light comes on and it's in the shape of an engine block, or, but it doesn't really tell you exactly what it is that needs your attention necessarily.
I like that.
Right. And so my analogy is that we very often do the equivalent of putting a piece of like black electrical tape over that check engine light. I can't see it, therefore it's not there. For me, that was my binge eating. That was like burying it in food. So if we could take one step back and go and instead of viewing this emotion or this feeling or this experience that we're in as a sort of a hostile threat to be eliminated, but actually something to be experienced and processed, it makes it, all of a sudden, I'm not treating maybe this emotion as something that doesn't belong there, that needs to be shoved away or even shameful to have.
Yeah, definitely. Can you think back to, and I mean, this is part of kind of the uncovering process and things, but think back to like maybe when you in your life, had that trauma or idea that eating was going to fill that space for you?
I'd be inclined to think like the trauma that I went through, like I was nearly beaten to death when living in South Africa. So that was like obviously a really difficult experience to go through, but it's almost like that exposed like some gaping wounds that were maybe already there, but that were sort of hidden by, I don't know, youthful vigor and excitement around
Childhood.
life.
Yeah.
Right. But like, growing up, we went through, I call it first world poverty because I've lived in third world countries now, but we struggled to make ends meet, and some days didn't know where the next meal was coming from. My parents did the absolute best they could. I love them dearly, but it meant that whenever like something good appeared in front of me, I ate it like there was like a starving,
Yeah.
child, or like there was no tomorrow, because like, I don't know,
Yeah.
when this next good meal is coming in. And so really, when my brain was still very like developing, I was sort of inadvertently developing this disordered relationship with food.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I think it's so important when we can look back and uncover those roots. And like you said, it's uncomfortable. And sometimes you don't want to look back and you don't want to
Mhm.
face those things, or even go back to face the feelings that you felt at that time. Because like you,
Yeah.
I'm very empathic as well. And I bring myself back to these situations, as a divorce, child of divorced parents. I was an only
Mhm.
child, and the loneliness and like the suffering and like the, maybe parents using food as a reward or as a way
Oh
to
yeah.
comfort me, and
Yeah.
things like that. And so I look at those, I had to really take a look at those same exact things too and say, okay, that it's not real. That's not real.
Yeah.
I don't really need all of that or this because of the way I'm feeling. Like you said, I need to sort through it. I need to look at it and maybe strategize different ways to deal with it. Like I really love to um do I really love to do tarot readings. And so
Okay.
for me, like the messages that I receive when I like in a meditative place to and open to kind of what do I need to heal? What do I need to learn? What, those kinds of
Mhm. Mhm.
things. Yeah, I
So
really
really, really,
find a lot of growth in that.
yeah, creating a reflective and learning space. And
Yeah.
maybe, maybe had this thought. Maybe another reason why we struggle with this is we feel, or maybe for me, I felt a sense of guilt around like becoming aware of my parents' flaws and their struggles. Because as a child, we look up to our parents. They're our guides,
Yeah.
and my parents did phenomenal. They're still
Yeah.
together, married 43 years.
Oh,
Like they did, and I think, man, they did the best they could in really difficult
yeah.
circumstances. Like I was born premature. I was born at 26
Wow.
weeks.
Oh, wow.
And I was 14 months after my brother. Like, so here's my mom, like with this preemie that might not
Wow,
survive.
my
Well,
goodness, that's back to back.
yeah, yeah, all of these things that happened, and they're just trying to navigate this. And like, my dad has trauma in his past from losses there, and so,
Yeah.
but didn't have that kind of parental support from like my grandparents, because they didn't know how to do it. Like they went through the war, and you know
Yeah.
so we look at all these pieces, and but people look at through compassion and say, like, for example, my parents did the best they could with the tools they had.
Yeah.
They were just trying to do the same thing. And I often feel in my heart, I'm like, I want to be the coach I wish my mom had 40 years ago,
Oh,
you know?
yeah, definitely. Definitely. No, I think that that's really great. And I think that sometimes we have to appreciate where we're at in a relationship with a family member, sometimes not for what we have expectations for, but for what it actually offers. And that's hard sometimes because like as a daughter, like I had children of my own, and so the expectations of grandparenthood and things, and now I live far away and it's not as easy, and it's not the idea that I had that it would be of going and staying for the weekend and getting
Hmm.
away and
Yeah.
all, just any of these things that you. And so at one point, instead of being disappointed that those expectations didn't happen, like I felt myself kind of starting to feel resentful about it, and
Hmm.
then realized, no, like these people are, it, like you said, they did the best they could. They're in my life every day. They're always a part of everything. They are very supportive. And that's what I need to see. That's what I need to appreciate, not the expectations that aren't being met of disappointment that are,
Mm.
not realistic.
Yeah, we really need to practice being like kinder towards ourselves. And
Mhm.
I often, like, I think in pictures and analogies, and so um and stories, really. And that's really what our brains do. Our brains are like these meaning making computers, in a sense. We take whatever it
Yeah.
is that we're experiencing and we try to make sense of it, and we often create a story around it. And when just in terms of even like thinking about the struggles that we face, well, very often we're going to create a story around it, and that story then becomes like a belief that we hold, and then that belief becomes, something that influences our actions, because our brain is trying to, let's say, it's trying to act in congruence with our sense of identity.
Yeah.
And so we get wrapped up in this. So, for example, when I was dealing with being morbidly obese, I took on the identity of the jolly fat guy, like the life of the party, who loved to eat, who encouraged everybody else to eat and enjoy themselves, and not have to kind of mask or like cover my own disordered eating behaviors.
Interesting.
So, I mean, it's still, people will be like, oh my, that's your third plate, man. Do you have a hollow leg or something? And, like, but that was this whole. And then when I would try to create change, I hadn't really worked with myself, or hadn't done the work sort of at the identity level. And so what it meant is any change I was trying to create was actually in conflict with the sense of identity that I presently held.
Yeah.
So because of that, my brain, our brains want to keep our sense of reality secure, if I could put it that way. Your brain's trying to keep you safe. And so in doing that, it would push me or drive me back to the behaviors that kept me with this identity of the jolly fat guy. So it's almost like I really had to put to rest, almost like a metaphorical death, if I could put it that way. It sounds dramatic, but this jolly fat guy, in order to be able to move past that. And there were things about being the jolly fat guy that were good. I mean, I was fun at parties.
I'm sure you're still fun.
Right. The idea to eat without sort of restraint, like it's like, it is like a type of addiction when you think in that sense, like the brain really likes that. And so that's one of I think the challenges that we come up against.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I like the way you said that too. That's so true. It's our relationship with ourselves is so important. And I think that there's so many adults out there that haven't realized that still struggle in their day to day, that go through their day 9 to 5, the, same shows they watch, the same meals, the same whatever in their routines. And they're wondering why nothing ever changes, why nothing, because you have to change your mind first, then you can change your actions. And sometimes you have to change your actions to change your mind, like you're saying. It's kind of, I guess, goes both ways.
Well, it really does. Like the work that I do, like I've kind of coined this term brain-driven weight loss. And it's because I want to shine a light on the fact that, like, yes, like how we choose to be active, what we eat, these factors will influence our weight and health, but it's the brain that's really driving the decision-making and our actions. And I feel like so many attempts to like create change or transformation, whether it's weight loss or some other kind of transformation, they take this outside in approach, right? And they don't really acknowledge the internal environment, whether it's our emotions or psychology or mindset or habits, these things that really powerfully influence our behaviors, when in reality, so many of our actions take place at this like subconscious or unconscious level. And our brain, the other thing, like I said, our brain is like a meaning making machine in one sense, but it's also like a habit forming computer. We could think about it that way as well. So a behavior that we repeat then starts to become an automatic behavior. So in one sense, we wonder, why do I feel stuck? It's because all of these behaviors are happening on repeat and on autopilot without conscious thought. And so if we want to create like permanent change, so for example, I work with people in the realm of weight loss, but I said, look, there's no point in losing. Like I could tie you to a tree and starve you and you'll lose weight. But the moment we untie you,
survivor style. Yeah.
Right. You're going right back to your old patterns of behavior.
Yeah, sure.
And so if we want to create permanent weight loss, like lose the weight and keep it off, it really actually involves creating permanent change. Yeah. And that really only happens by establishing like a new sense of identity, examining our habits and our behaviors. And really, like, our brain has this really marvelous property called neuroplasticity. That's the brain's ability to rewire itself. It's incredible. So change is possible, but it looks different than the way that maybe we've been sold or marketed to for so many years.
Yeah, no, I can see what you mean there. Definitely. I have an interesting thought about that for my own probably vulnerability that I've really never shared with anybody, but I did I have done the same thing, just kind of looked at my weight loss for years as an issue. And it was because as a child, I was told that it was, and that I needed to be careful and that I always needed to think about it. And so it became obsessive, which then becomes horrible. And you start filling that with other types of addictions to cover that obsessive possessiveness of. And you know, always wanting to, like you said, be friendly to everyone, like be the smile, everybody's, you know, the waving person, smiling at everyone, just all of those things I can say. And there was a time where I, you know, it was really like, oh, how am I going to show, you know, this person that like I've made it, and like, oh, I've lost weight, like now I'm you know, at this part where in my life where, you know, I'm 40 and I like have like 6-pack abs and it's amazing, look at me, and you know, here I am. And then it was like 2 years later, right back to where I started before that was happening. And I know where I stopped. I know where what occurred, what happened, you know, is that I wasn't being myself that entire time. I was going against my own self, trying to please an outside opinion of myself, which is insane. That doesn't even make sense. Right. But it took a long time for, you know, my husband to help me realize that, for myself to realize, hey, this is the body you have, and this is the, you know, kind of shape that you are. This is the way you keep coming back to. So this is what you need to be happy and, you know, and take care of. This is how you need to take care of yourself, because like, you can be, you know, more pounds than you think you should be, or than the neighbor thinks, whatever, but that doesn't matter. Like, in your confidence level, in the way that you actually feel about the person that you are, like that is what I'm finally learning. That's what people see. People see me for my personality, if not for, you know, what size dress I'm wearing. Thank goodness.
Well, and I, you know, very often I say, like, I wish, like I meet people where they're at. So very many people still want to lose weight. And I'm like, well, if I don't talk about weight loss, like I'm missing out on actually being able to help people. But I wish I could say, like, you know, side effects may include weight loss.
Because, I love it.
Right. Because really the work that we're trying to do here, like that is like weight loss is a byproduct of what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so I often find myself saying, like, weight loss is a doorway. It's not a destination. And so we make a mistake when we make this into a destination and then say my happiness lies in that destination. I'm like, well, no.
Made it. Like, now I can go back on vacation. All right. Now I'm off vacation, I guess.
Exactly. And so, you know, the truth is, like, from a biological standpoint, like for most people, like who would benefit from losing weight, like your physical health will probably improve. Exactly. But the thing is, it's never really about this number on the scale. Right? This is about quality of life. So the number that we picture in our head, like I'll be happy when I, you know, get to, I don't know, whatever, 150 pounds or whatever people think that the number is. It's really just a placeholder for this future that we feel like it's going to enable us to live in, you know, this future where maybe we feel comfortable in our skin. We can wear anything and feel great. We can, you know, get on the floor and play with our kids or go for a hike and that kind of thing. So it's really more about, well, free to live the life you want instead of the one you wish, if I could put it that way. And so if we could view weight loss differently, that it's not about, like, obviously human beings have eyeballs for a reason, right? Like they're you know, we can't entirely escape the biology of attraction and what draws us together. And I don't think we should necessarily, but really it's about being able to experience life more fully. And happiness is never going to lie with a number on the scale. Yeah. You know, you might feel a sense of accomplishment for a day or two or whatever, but in truth, it's about being able to live life independently on your terms.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. I think that is so true. Yeah. And so where are you now in your health journey and things? What are you going to do? Tell us about the book that you have out there so we can get on there and look for that too.
Well, really, like Crush Your Cravings is a relatively short, you know, there's probably a longer book going to be in the works, but really the idea here is to kind of show people a little bit of my own story, because I think what we do is we read other people's stories and we find inspiration by seeing elements of ourselves in those stories. So it's really valuable for anybody, I think, who's trying to help other people to be willing to share elements of your own story and what you've overcome. And I was terrified to do this for the longest time, to tell people like that I'm not a fitness model, for example, that I work in the realm, like I've lost a bunch of weight, but I have loose skin because I used to be obese. Like,
You're
don't see,
real. Like
yeah.
that's
It's like,
better, I think. But
well, and truthfully, like it is, but I
yeah.
remember like starting out in this space and being sort of so intimidated by like seeing Instagram, for example, which is probably, I've heard it said that Instagram is where like health goes to die,
Oh,
or fitness goes, because it promotes like so many unhealthy things in the name of like getting appealing photos that get likes and stuff like that,
sure.
And so, I was terrified to share my story, but when I did, it really opened the door, because people are like, oh my gosh, this person will understand me. They'll
Yeah.
understand my struggle. Because it's like, I still have my daily struggles. Yes, I've kept the weight off, which is really fantastic. But I want people to understand that like some of the urges and impulses that exist in my brain, when I was 330 pounds, like they're still there, but I just navigate them differently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily have to feed them metaphorically or literally,
Yeah.
um, I also say like it's helpful to maybe I'll take one step back and say like I was a binge eating food addict, and maybe that I've noticed in my own sort of nature, personality, there's this tendency towards maybe addiction like behaviors. I can get really wrapped up in one particular thing and just do it on repeat and so on. And I don't play video games for that reason, because I would get so like drawn into it. Food was just another way. And so I talk about finding what we call an emotionally compelling reason. So when we understand that emotions are a huge part of our life and creating behaviors and so on, let's just say I'm going through Costco, this warehouse kind of store with like all kinds of giant packages of food, and I will see something there and be like, my brain will go, man, it'd be fun to eat that whole thing. Right. It's still there.
Yeah.
But then I look at like my son, and at the time of recording, he's 9 months old, and he's pulling himself up, he's crawling, and I want to be physically present in his life. I want to be able to run after him. I get on the floor and I kind of wrestle with him and tickle him, and just, we have this physical interaction that's like a ton of fun, because my son's not a snuggler. It's like I have this little trick I play where I let him like sort of get on top of me and pretend to be wrestling me. And in fact, I'm actually getting a cuddle from him.
Yeah, good for you. Good for
because
you.
if actually hold him, he will wrestle until he faces outward, right? Because he wants to observe the world around him, and that's who he is. I say I get struggles, not snuggles, but
right.
Yeah. but he loves, like, I mean, his face lights up and all his limbs flap when I walk into the room. Like he just gets so excited because he loves this sort of physical type of interaction.
Mm-hmm.
I put him on my head and sort of spin him like make him like a helicopter, and he just thinks it's the greatest thing in the world. Aww. So for me, maintaining my weight loss is about like being able to be physically present in my son's life, because he really enjoys this sort of physical type interaction.
Yeah.
And imagine if I couldn't get on the floor and play with him. It's like, sorry, daddy's too tired, or daddy, if he gets down on the floor, he's not going to be able to get up again. That would break my heart to not do that. And so all of this to say that when this urge, let's say maybe an urge comes up in my head, like, oh, I'd really like to eat this entire bag of chips or eat an entire pizza or something. I go back to, wait a minute, why does my weight loss really matter to me? And it's really about being present in my son's life. And I tap into that the sense of parental love that I feel. It's like more powerful, I think, than just about any other force on earth.
I agree. Yeah. No, I agree with that. It is so powerful, isn't it? Yeah, it can compel you to do things and be passionate about things and start whole endeavors because of them, right? It's so true. It's such an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show today. It was a wonderful conversation, just wonderful. We could just keep going, I'm sure. We'll have to do it another time too.
I think so, yeah.
But tell us where we can find you, your website and social medias.
Yeah. Freedom Nutrition Coach. You'll find me on Instagram, on Facebook. freedomnutritioncoach.com would be my website. And I would really just invite people to have a conversation. I think sometimes that people feel intimidated to come and talk. And I'm like, the first thing I want to do is, if someone wants to work with me, if they heard something kind of resonates, I'm like, let's just talk. Yeah. I want to understand you and your story and what makes you tick. And in understanding that, I'll know whether or not even I'm the right person to help you.
Yeah.
And it's like why I get like the really fantastic results that I do is because I really only work with people that I know I can genuinely help. And I think that's super important. And for anybody out there, because weight loss is like weight loss feels like a bit like a loaded topic from, but there still exists out there a lot of these programs that involve like strict food rules, restrictive meal plans, expensive supplement regimens. Like, you're literally paying hundreds of dollars a month to buy supplements, kind of thing, all to kind of force you into this temporary straitjacket and unnaturally force weight loss to happen. And there's judgment and shame and coercion. And it's like, that's not really how this is supposed to work as human beings. And so what I've done is I really try to connect the science of metabolism, because that matters, but with the psychology of behavior change. And then really the glue that holds it all together is the compassion of human connection. We want to empower each individual to really reverse engineer, build out their own healthy lifestyle. And I think it's an approach that I don't hear a lot of people taking. And the other thing is, I treat you like an expert. So because yes, I bring my expertise in nutrition and psychology, but you are the expert of your own life and experience.
Right. In your own body.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it would be very disempowering if I was to go to you and say, give me your problems, I will solve them and hand them back to you. You've gained nothing from that. You haven't learned, you haven't developed, you haven't grown. And my goal is to create transformation. So very often I find myself saying, like, I'm a tour guide, not a Sherpa.
Yeah, that's good.
But really it's about respecting people's autonomy and their independence and the power they actually hold in their own lives.
Yeah.
And so showing people that this is possible. And so clearly I love what I do.
It's totally wonderful. Yeah. You're very passionate about it. And that's what makes you the expert. So we're glad to have you on today. Thank you so much. And please make sure to check out Freedom Nutrition Coaching. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, good. That was off my memory. Woo, thank goodness. Thank you so much for your time today. And we will definitely be in touch. Hi, and thanks for joining the SJ Child Show. The SJ Child Show brings value to families through education and resources. But the SJ Child Show isn't just about me. It's about us as a community. Join me as we help educate and support our community, help bring kindness and love and inclusion to all. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and watch. I really appreciate all the support from all of the viewers and listeners, and I just want to let you know I want you to join me on this journey. Come and follow my social media, and let's do this together. Enjoy the show. Introducing Autism Vehicle Home Safety Kits, Emergency Responder, alert stickers, personal profiles with autism needs and a communication board, masks and earplugs, keeping families and emergency responders educated and safe. Get yours today at sjchilds.org. Helping autism families impact their child's developmental milestones through home relocation, community resources, and home designs. For every 3 homes Natalie Castro sells, she funds and designs a sensory room for a community center servicing individuals with autism. She volunteers to coach law enforcement, first responders, and ER nurses how to have a positive experience for individuals on the autism spectrum. The SJ Child Show, produced by SJ Childs LLC. Thanks to all my viewers and listeners for your continued love and support. And thank you to the guests of the SJ Child Show. It's been an honor to have you on the show. Thank you to everyone who continues to support me. Go to my social media and let's build this community together through kindness, compassion, and education for others.